Welcome to Work From Your Happy Place, the podcast that equips you with the tools, know-how, and motivation to live your dreams and find your happy place. Be sure to sign up for our free weekly newsletter for a recap of the week's guests and a preview of what's in store. To sign up, simply text the word Happy Place with no space to 33444. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce the host of Work From Your Happy Place, Belinda Ellsworth.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Work From Your Happy Place. I'm your host, Belinda, and this is our artist edition of our show. Today, I have an awesome guest with me, Kramer, who's a rock composer, musician. Hailing from the Scandinavian Peninsula country of Norway, Kramer is truly a modern-day Viking, poised to take no prisoners as he conquers the hearts, minds, and souls of rockers around the world. Armed with a guitar, this graduate of Metal 101 constitutes a triple threat as a composer, vocalist, and formidable musician. It's my pleasure to welcome Rocky to our show today.
Hello, hello. How is everyone?
Hi. Yeah, we're good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Great. So, Rocky, let's just go back. Let's fill in some of the gaps of this bio. And let's go back at the beginning of your journey and how you got started in music, and then tell us a little bit about kind of your big breakthrough.
Sure. I'm from Trondheim, Norway, which is the third largest city in Norway. It's kind of a rockin' town, and it's a place with a lot of music, and including my family. So my father, he was when I was growing up, he was a first violinist in the Trondheim Symphony Orchestra. So he was a classical musician, and then my mother was a piano teacher, and she sang in a choir. And it was actually, that's how they met, was because of she was singing in a choir, and he was performing with the orchestra, and that's how they met. And that's how I grew up. Unfortunately, my mom passed away when I was 5, and that's kind of when my own musical journey began, because my father wanted his 2 sons. I have an older brother, and he wanted his 2 sons to play music or play a musical instrument. So I started on the violin. My brother started on the piano, and that's how I learned how to read music. That's how I learned how to, I guess, kind of how to write music and how to learn how to play an instrument and all those things. And I quickly realized that I actually preferred the guitar, and I actually preferred to play rock and roll over classical music. But that's how I started, was with classical music. So when I started playing the guitar and I started playing rock and roll, I added a little bit of a classical influence, which made it more interesting to me. And it's just something that I thought stood out more, because a lot of the rock and roll was based on blues or maybe even jazz. So I thought it was cool to get into more of the classical sound, which was, I mean, already done by, guys like Randy Rhoads and, from Ozzy and Yngwie Malmsteen and Brian May from Queen. Like, they were all kind of bringing in that influence, which I thought was cool. So that's just how I wanted to express myself on the guitar, kind of playing the violin on the guitar. And that's how I kind of got started and made a lot of progress quickly, just because of that, because I'd already had that foundation on the violin.
Right. I think it's so important, and does definitely bring a whole different vibe to the whole thing. Is when you're classically trained, I think that helps you in whatever endeavor that you choose to go into, and it just makes a huge difference.
It does, and it's funny when I read other biographies of other either rock or metal musicians. It's funny how so many of them started on the piano, or they started with a trumpet or some classical instrument, and or maybe they were in a marching band or something. That's how a lot of us start out, and then we figure out what we want to do and kind of want to express ourselves the way we want to do it, instead of being told what to do, which is kind of how you start out when you have a teacher and all that.
Right. So then, so now you're playing, and now you've started playing guitar, and like, take us on that next piece of that journey.
Sure. So finally, I play electric guitar. I started on the acoustic for a little bit, but eventually I bought my own electric guitar, started a band, started another band, and played a lot of bands. And we started playing shows, and that's when it went from kind of just being, kind of like a dream and kind of like, oh, what is it like, to actually being on stage and doing that regularly. And I was only 13 when I played my first club show. So it was just kind of, I was not old enough to drink or any of that stuff, but we weren't into that because we were high on rock and roll. That was our thing. So we were fine with that. And we just had a great time opening up for other bands. And that was a great beginning. And then when I was doing that, I kind of started writing my own music. That was a little different than that. And I wanted to write music that was more in the veins of like Pink Floyd or Queen, Yngwie Malmsteen, and like more progressive, more intricate stuff, more classical influence. Because what I was playing in front of people was just straight up rock and roll. And as much fun as that is, and a lot of my influences were, like Kiss and AC/DC and kind of, Led Zeppelin, kind of straightforward rock and roll guitars, no strings, no keyboards, no nothing. Just simple meat and potatoes rock and roll. I wanted to make it really grand and huge. And I decided that maybe it's better if I venture out on my own and be a solo artist and create something that is more what I want to do. And that's more kind of, it's my vision, and then try to mix that with what producers and musicians, what they want to do, and kind of make it into something that is a little bit more than just the typical rock and roll. So that's kind of how that became. And then as things were kind of not progressing as much as I wanted it to in Norway, I realized that, okay, maybe it's time to go to the States, because I just wanted to have more opportunities and more exposure than I was getting in Trondheim, because it's just a small city. It's like it was like 160,000 people. It's a little hard to it's hard to get going with that, and it's just a different scene. So I eventually found a way to get to LA, basically through school, and I went here and got kind of got in touch with a few people in the industry. Like one of them was Mike Pinera, who was a guitar player for Alice Cooper and Iron Butterfly, like kind of a industry veteran on the music side. And then he introduced me to the CEO of Allied Artists, Kim Richards, who then kind of wanted to develop me. And then he introduced me to the lead of the music group, the Allied Artists music group. And that's how I ended up with a record deal. And then all of a sudden, I'm not just, dreaming about doing this. It's like, it's happening. It's, something's happening. And so that was exciting. And then, we went in the studio and we made the album, and it was all going really well. We were on tour at the end of 2019, and it was all happening. And then all of a sudden we had an issue with a certain pandemic.
Yeah.
So that kind of put it slightly on hold, but we're going to get through that.
Absolutely. Well, that's exciting. So tell us about one of your greatest accomplishments. So throughout this, when was that moment you were like, oh my gosh, like, wow?
Well, we were, because of that build up with the album, it took a few years to get the album out, and we put it out. We had a music video for the first single called Rockstar. And it had an animated character in it, which was Little Rocky. And Little Rocky was kind of like a teenage version of me dreaming of being a rock star. So that was kind of the premise of that. We were fortunate enough that the song was getting a lot of airplay on digital radio, and it ended up being number one in the charts, on the DRT charts, which was a really, really fun thing.
Oh, yeah.
And then it got a nomination at the Hollywood Music and Media Awards at the end of 2019. So it was like that whole end of 2019 was a fun year for me because we put the album out, got a #1, got a nomination. We toured with Buck Cherry. It was a very fun time.
Very good. So let's talk about sort of the polar opposite of that. And so one of your greatest challenges that you faced during this journey and how you worked through it.
Yeah. I think that because when I started, trying to figure out what I wanted to do professionally with music, I was very much influenced by 80s music, and I loved the 80s sound, and I loved what was happening. Basically, I loved everything that was happening before I was born, and and everything that is current, everything that is on the on the #1 on the charts. It was just not interesting to me because a lot of it is just a completely opposite genre, and everything is auto-tuned and samples and all that stuff.
Yep.
So I just couldn't really relate to that. So it's a little hard for me. I think that my biggest challenge is to try to fit in with the current music scene because it's not what I want it to be. Because I want to do the big guitar solos like they were doing in the 80s. And today there is certainly a market for that. And there are people that love the 80s, even people that didn't live during the 80s, which I'm one of them. It's like we look back at the 80s saying, wow, that was a really fun time, even though, it's not the 80s anymore and everything's changed. So it's a bit of a challenge to try to fit into that because now, it's like it's social media. It's you got to do this, you got to do that. So it's just it's a little bit different than the way things were. So
it's different. It's different in the way that people find sort of their niche music that they like to listen to. We just don't see the Billboard top 100 as much anymore, and it's just harder to, I think, quantify. And you don't see as many rock and roll groups anymore. I miss that quite frankly. So I always think it's exciting when there's a new sort of emerging rocker or rock band. It's always exciting, I think, because you're right about today's music. It is very, very different. And then people find their lane and they just sort of stick to that lane.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that it's obviously always about survival. If you're doing something, it's better to, it's like people say, it's better to get, 20% of something than 0% of, or 100% of nothing.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm all into that, but I want to make sure that I do things that I believe in and that I can look back on and say, okay, that's what I wanted to do at the time. Maybe it wasn't what everyone was interested in, but at least I believe in it. And over time, I think that's what's going to make the difference because eventually, something, if I have a song, like let's say I have to make 4 albums before I have like the big hit, at least there are 4 albums at that point that people can listen to and go back to. So
absolutely.
So everything you do is worth it in the end. So I don't feel bad about it. Right.
And I think everything that you do takes you one step further and closer to where you want to be.
Absolutely. And you learn something, sometimes you have to do it the wrong way to know how to do it the right way.
That's absolutely right. And people, I think that's the biggest thing that people make, especially with artists and even in business, but you see it more with artists is they want to wait till everything is perfect before they put themselves out there. And you just have to put yourself out there and sort of find your tribe.
Yeah, it's very easy to hide, and not let people in on your work. But I think it's exposure is everything. You have to if people don't know who you are, then it doesn't matter what you do because it's nobody gets to see it.
Right. So let's talk about one of your most memorable performances.
I would probably say that like the most memorable to me was definitely being on the road with Buck Cherry because every night we were playing for a good audience. It was in the UK, and we were having a great time every night. So that was a very exciting time, and we were on the road with them for about 10 days. So it was a very exciting time to finally get to play the music in a way that was I think it was the right way, because we'd performed the music for a couple of years at least, but it was like finally it was all finally sort of glued together in a way that was very comfortable. And it's always nice when you're on stage and you feel safe with everything happening, because you know that it's going to happen the way you were planning it to happen. So that's a good feeling. So that's when the confidence comes in, and that's when you have a good moment. That's when you have that special moment.
That's awesome. So we already touched on briefly social media, but building a fan base is probably the single most important thing as an artist that you can do. Mm-hmm. And the way to do that these days is much different than the way people did it many, many years ago. And so we've talked a little bit about social media, but what ways do you work at building your fan base and then keeping that fan base, like nurturing it?
Right. Social media is definitely probably the one that you at least have to include that if you want to build your fan base. I think it's important. It's important to let people see the professional side of you, but you want to let them kind of see some of the personal stuff too. So you're not just showing stuff of you playing guitar all day, even though that's what as a guitar player, I want to show stuff that I do, or as a singer, I want to show that. But, once in a while you got to show a little bit of that stuff you do just for fun. But there are a lot of tools we have now that I think are useful. And one that I've been doing since the pandemic, and I really wanted to do it before that, but I was just too hesitant about it, is Twitch, because it's live streaming and everything is it's live. So that means you can't touch it up. You can't do anything afterwards. You can't re-record anything, but you do get to interact with your fans, and you do actually develop fans, because it's sort of like, it's like a snowball. At first when you start, you have, no followers, you have nothing. And then it grows from 3 viewers, then you get 10 viewers, then you get 50, then you get 100, and it's kind of, it grows and it grows. And it's nice to be able to develop that, because it's like you can have a rock concert and you're doing it at the comfort, in your own home, and everyone's watching it from their homes. And it's just kind of a fun way to grow a community and a fan base that I don't think I would have had otherwise. So I feel like that's been very helpful. And other things that I'm kind of getting into now is this one thing called Discord, which is essentially, it's like social media, but it's an invitation. So nothing is public. So you have to join to be a part of it. So it's kind of like a modern day fan club where you can actually interact and have really like conversations and whatever you want to talk about on the Discord server. And that's essentially you can't Google what's in the conversations, but it allows you to be a little more personal than what you would be on social media, because social media, everything is essentially, it's a post. You can like it, you can comment it, but everything is public. So you want to be a little bit, careful about what you say. But so it gives you so Discord gives you a little bit of the ability to be, have a little more fun and tell some jokes and stuff,
Okay. Well, so interesting enough, and I've had numerous artists on the show, but no one has mentioned Twitch or Discord. So I'm finding
really?
this. Yeah. So I'm finding it really interesting, and I'm sure our audience will as well. So that those are the two. And I know you mentioned a lot of the other platforms, which are kind of the ones that most people are on.
You got all the Instagram and the Twitter and Facebook and all that, but that's kind of, and YouTube. I mean, I should always mention YouTube. I think YouTube, I get a lot of traction on that.
Right. And I would say that's the number one for a lot of artists is YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Definitely,
sure.
definitely. Yeah.
So what kinds of things then do you do on there? I'm just going to dig a little deeper with this with you, like, because that is one thing that people, you hope that people will listen and then word of mouth and people say follow, but are there any things that you do strategically to take that, like from 500 listening to 100 to, 500? Like, is there anything that you do that you feel is strategic, like on Twitch or on Discord?
I think the best thing you can do is to actually interact with people. I think that if you're ignoring people, they will feel ignored. So, like, the nice thing about Twitch is the fact that you can chat with someone in real time. I mean, I'm the one that is on the video. I'm the one that has the microphone, and I'm the one that's performing. But when you can write something in the chat, I can either read it back, or I can respond to it, or in many cases, people will suggest a certain song. And I think that in many cases, just that interaction, I think, is enough to make people feel that they belong, in that sort of little community, and that tends to bring them back in most cases. And I know there are people that they enjoy watching the show, and they either in some cases they send me private messages, just saying thank you for the show, or something to that effect, or can you do this song or something in private.
Sure.
And then you have other people that they just want to be more public about it, and that's fine. Either way works for me, and I think it's nice because as long as it lets me know that they're either enjoying it or not enjoying it, which I don't really, for some reason I don't get a lot of hate or hateful stuff, which is good, because I know a lot of people do. So I'm lucky in that sense.
That is good. I feel like I've been fortunate in that too. I haven't gotten a lot of that either. I'll get the oddball person here and there. We've recently had people kind of like hackers trying to hack in and promote their own thing on that's been a new thing for me in the last. And so we're having to be kind of careful about that. And I'm blown away at the means that people go to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just always make sure that your passwords are good and solid.
Well, what I mean is they get on there and they act like they're me, and then they they
like fake accounts.
Yeah, and then I will do a contest, let's say, and so they've started going in and saying, "Oh, you're a winner." And then we just need your credit card to ship this out to you, which I would never charge anybody if I do a contest and you get a prize, you get a prize. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But,
so not going to charge you. Yeah.
I'm not going to charge you for your prize. So this is all new for me. This is like in the last month that these people have been doing this. So we've had to tell our listeners, like, I will never charge you for a prize ever. So do not give your credit card to anybody.
Yes.
So it's been interesting for sure. But man, social media is an ever changing. Ever changing. It's like I always we have a book here that was kind of a famous business book called Who Moved My Cheese, and it's about change. It's about navigating change, and when you feel like if you can't navigate change, it's like you've got to be able to go with what's happening. But I always tell everybody, social media is like who moved my cheese on a daily basis. It's like when you think you've kind of got it, they're like, nope, new rules.
It's different. Yeah, it does change. So it is a little hard to follow on all the changes, but you just have to try to do your best.
That's right. So let's talk about this is sort of the signature question of our show, but what does working from your happy place mean to you?
It's I think it's changed a little bit, but working from my happy place, honestly, and I know some people would think that it would be being in like a big studio or something, but it really is, and I'm sitting here right now, is being in front of my computer at home. I have speakers, and I have everything I need to record music and to write music. I have keyboards and guitar amps and controllers for everything that I need. and that's just it. It really makes me very comfortable, and it
Mm-hmm.
makes me work really hard, and it makes me focus on the work instead of being distracted by 1,000 other things, which is very easy. It's very easy to be distracted when you're working on creatively, and it's nice to have a place where everything is the way that everything is where I know where everything is. I know what buttons to push to do the things I need to do. If I want to record vocals, I can do it in a matter of minutes. And if I want to record guitar, I can do it. I can plug straight in. Like right now, it's plugged in. I can do it. I can, start strumming. So it's, to me, like that's really the thing, because I like to write music. I like to record music, and being able to just go straight to it and without any hassle, without having to drive an hour to the other side of LA or
Right.
something, because just being in traffic for an hour is, it kind of kills your spirit in a way. So being comfortable at home or something, I think is essential to getting the work done.
That is really, like, I hadn't really put that fully together, but you're so right, because of today's technology and everything's at your fingertips. It allows you to just really be creative when you're in that space of being creative. I think that that's something that, like, in a day you would have to think, okay, I'm going to head over to the studio and I want to lay this down. I'm excited. And you're right. If you drive for an hour in traffic, you're like, oh man, I'm not as excited as I was an hour ago. So that's pretty amazing at the difference of what today's, technology and what we have available for, doing our own recording at home. It's kind of quite amazing.
It is. And I think that's really good, because there was a time, or really for the longest, when if you wanted to be a recording artist, you really had to go into the studio. You really had to have a record label behind you, because they had to pay for expensive studio sessions. You had to have engineers and producers to make sure that it would be even possible to make it. I mean, nowadays, having engineers and producers is really just to make it better, or to bring in more ideas, because from a technical standpoint, you can record at home and you can probably get 90% there on your own. It's just a matter of that final stroke of paint to make it a little better that's why you bring in more people.
Sure.
And so it's really nice being able to do that. I mean, I feel proud when I'm doing something at home that to me sounds like something I want to listen to, because that's something that I really wasn't able to do when I started out. Because when I was 13, we had a computer and it came with a microphone, which was really just for, Skype or whatever, like, for video chat or something. And it sounded horrible, and it was awful. Everything I recorded was just really distorted, and it was miserable to listen to. So being able to do all this stuff at home and make it sound like something that, gets my foot going, that's really cool for me. I think that's enjoyable.
Oh, that's awesome. So what advice would you give to someone just starting out, especially a young artist that is sort of starting out in this world and they really want to follow their passion?
I think that the most important thing that they should always keep in mind is that you should always be as good as you can possibly be at what you do. So if you want to be a singer, you should probably take vocal lessons. I really recommend that. And even if you just want to be a bass player or a drummer, you're not planning on singing, you should probably take vocal lessons anyway, because it always helps. It's always helpful to have to be able to sing correctly, because that's something you can really lose. You can break a string on a guitar. You can break the snare drum in half. But if your vocal cords go out, then you're in trouble, because you can't really do much with something that is a part of your body. So that's maybe the biggest advice. But the most important thing just in general is to work really hard and let people know that you work really hard, because you got to show people what you do. And that is the benefit of social media, is that people can actually find the things that you do if you know how to work all the algorithms and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, it's important to show people what you do.
I love that. And I do think that whole just mastering your craft, you just have to practice. But I love the part about the vocals. It's so true. I was a drummer for many, many years.
Awesome.
And every time when I would go to an audition or go to play, they'd say, "Do you sing?" And I know that there were several gigs that I probably lost because of the fact that I didn't. You know what I mean?
Because you said no. Yeah.
Yeah. I should have been able to say a little bit. I mean, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, but I did not. And I know for sure that they didn't say, okay, because I started playing pretty young and was pretty good. And I know that was a make or break. So that's really super great advice. I love that. All right. So new and exciting things that you're working on that you think our listeners might find interesting. And then please tell us where we can find you. Where can everybody listen to you at?
Maybe I'll do that one, the last one first. My music is I have one album out called Firestorm, which is on everywhere except Spotify. So you can find it. You can find it as a CD. You can get the double vinyl. It's all available now. It's and all the streaming services except Spotify. There's also, if you want to hear more music, which I did a lot of covers during the pandemic. I think I have about 10 of them on YouTube. There's a video for everything, so please check that out. My YouTube is probably the best place to start, and if you want to find it, it should be as easy as going to youtube.com/Rocky Kramer. And you can always go to rockykramer.com for all the social media links and all that.
All right, perfect. And new and exciting things.
And the new things, yes. Well, like I said, I love writing music and I love recording. So right now I'm working on the next album that I'm hoping to record with my band later in the year. But right now I've been making demos, and this is something that, for the first time, I've been really scrutinizing my own work and really just been very, very critical, which I think is important at some point, because I was, for a long time, I believed in creating something and then putting it away and saying, okay, it is what it is. But now I'm thinking, well, sometimes you learn things and you change as a person, and sometimes you change as a songwriter, you change as a guitar player. I just wanted to make everything something that I believe in today, so that it's as strong as it can be, because I've developed, and I want it to be something that is better, because I wrote a lot of these songs when I was, very young. I was like 12 or 13 when I wrote some of these songs. So things have changed and I've learned a lot. So I want that to be represented, so that it's not just, it's not, too undeveloped. I want it to sound like, I just want it to, hit you in the face the moment you hear it and you say, wow, that was amazing. Like, that's what I want. That's the effect I want. So hopefully we'll get to recording that later in the year. We have some cool ideas for it. So I think it's going to be a fun album.
Oh, good. Well, we'll look forward to that for sure. Well, it has been a pleasure having you on the show today. And thanks so much for joining us. And I hope that you keep at it. And I'm sure listeners are going to check it out. I went and listened to several of your songs in the last couple of days, just in preparation of this. So love what you're doing, and anxious to see what new things come out. So thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. To all of our listeners out there, thanks for joining us today. And don't forget to rate and review, and please subscribe so you don't miss a single one of our awesome interviews. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on Work From Your Happy Place.
Thanks for joining us at Work From Your Happy Place. If you like what you hear, please share it with your friends, and be sure to rate and review us on iTunes or Stitcher. For a free gift on finding your own happy place, please visit workfromyourhappyplace.com and click on the free audio button. Thanks again for listening.